Hi, everybody. It's Friday. It's Lori Melnitsky, speech language pathologist, director of All Island Speech and Stuttering Therapy, stuttering specialist, and life coach. And I wanted to come on, and it's always like hard to come on a Friday after a long week, but I've been wanting to come on all week. And I had a great conversation actually with a wonderful young man who I know who happens to be graduating college this year. And to many of you who know me, it's just such a pleasure to work with, um, young men and women who are going out to the world who just, are just so polite and just so intelligent. And we were just having a conversation that, nowadays when you're looking for a job, so many employers want to do phone interviews. And I was thinking like how hard that is because years ago in the olden days, we didn't have that. We just had to go in and we had to meet somebody. So we had that opportunity. So even, for example, in some cases where somebody is stuttering, you didn't have to navigate the phone and what happens if you're interrupted and interestingly I said to him, well, are you doing a FaceTime or a Skype? He said, no, it's just a phone interview, which I always find interesting because I know like sometimes when I'm hiring somebody, it's very, very hard to tell what someone's like from a telephone conversation. I mean, maybe you can get a little better feel, over FaceTime or Skype. So what I was thinking of is that, it's just really important that in those situations, even more, the power of our voice and the power of communication matters even more. Years ago, when I first, was like really like struggling to work on the fluency, I would always like kind of talk lower and, I would always like get into this thing and like, oh, am I going to be able to use fluency tools? And I was so, I guess the word is conflicted. I was so conflicted how I was going to speak that I forgot about me and I forgot about the power of communication. I remember though, the one thing, the one piece of advice that I'm going to give you that helped me, because I got a couple of jobs that I didn't really think I had any experience that I wouldn't have hired me. But I always somehow had the ability to look the person in the eye and believe in myself. So on a phone interview, that's really hard because you can't look the person in the eye. Sometimes you have to kind of feel the other person out, which is hard, and see like, can I use a little humor? Can I kind of soften the conversation? Oh, hi, how are you? How's the weather there? Certain things. So the focus, isn't on just the mechanics of speaking. So that's really important. Over the years, I've really worked with people on a lot of things, on job interviews, on public speaking, on the power of your voice. Your voice and your airflow, when it comes out and you can like expand on it, all of a sudden the world kind of opens up because they're looking at you and they're hearing the excitement and the inflection in your voice. Once you have the inflection, you sort of get the person's personality in. So I always say, try and kind of, you're trying going up and down and, up and down, and you're trying to like get more intonation. Without the intonation, hey Jen, without the intonation, people aren't going to pay attention to the message. They need the message. It's really important. You want people to hear your message. You want to stand out. In terms about, people have asked me this, about advocating or, mentioning that you stutter. Or once actually I went into it was back to school night, and my daughter's teacher happened to have had laryngeal cancer. Now, I didn't know at first because she was very hoarse and it was very hard hearing her until she eventually said, oh, actually, I don't know. I don't know if she even mentioned it. I think somebody mentioned it at the end. But I remember thinking that it would have been important to mention, not that she had to share her life, but once you know that, then you start listening in more and you're not spending your time trying to figure out what's happening. So I say, if you stutter and you want to advocate because it helps you, remember, you're doing it to help you. You're not doing it to help them. You don't have to like make it into a whole big thing. You could say, oh, you know what? I'm a little nervous. You know what? I just, I tend to stutter sometimes. Please bear with me and it doesn't interfere. And I used to say that a lot. That gave me power. It's about you. It's about you getting a job. This is a hard job market. So we want to find, what it is that people are listening to, what it is. And it's hard because you don't know exactly who's on the other end. Also, role play. Whatever your situation is, role play job interviews. Sit down. You could probably even Google this. Think of questions that you can ask and have somebody role play with you. Try to ask someone, other than an immediate family member, because that's really, I don't want to say easy, but it's a lot easier. Okay, you want to create stress. Also, have them interrupt you, because in the real world, people are interrupting. We're in a very fast-paced world. So I would role play, and if you don't have anyone, I would role play, and I would turn on the voice memo on your phone, and I would listen to it afterwards. On my Facebook Lives, because I think they're getting easier, but when I first started doing it, I realized I was like a robot. If you go back to maybe 8 months ago, I was like a robot. There was no animation. I was like napping. Everybody else was probably napping also. So you want to hear yourself. The more you can hear yourself, the more you can modify the way you're acting, what you're saying. Look in a mirror. Joe Biden used to always say that he always used to read in a mirror. Now, somehow that helped him. He might have developmentally stopped stuttering anyway, but I think it did somehow get him into this whole, public speaking arena. So these are just like, some ideas. I mean, definitely role play. The more you role play situations, the more you visualize in your head who you're speaking to, the more you desensitize, the more you break down the wall. It's very hard to know sometimes why people hire you. Sometimes they hire you based on knowledge. Sometimes you just connect. You just, happen to have this person who interviews with you, and you connect. So I hope some of those tips help you. I hope some of you can watch this on replay. Jen, I'm so happy you're on, because I feel like there's actually somebody out there. And I just want to say, have a great weekend. I'm going to actually come back on next week. I want to talk to some of you because I haven't talked about prompts, which is a tactile way of helping children speak. And it's very important and it really helps. So I'm going to do that next week. Have a great weekend. Any questions, please let me know. Bye-bye.